my name is Lisa. I found Tara through her YouTube channel and have very much resonated with her channelings. I've worked with her on several occasions one-on-one and was given clarity during those sessions that part of my mission here is to work with children in nature and to create community. Just a little bit about myself. I was a public school teacher for 10 years. When my second child was 2, around that time, I started to really question my role as a teacher. My daughter refused to go to daycare, and I basically had to peel her off me on a daily basis. I'm so thankful as the universe gave me this problem as it led me on a path more in alignment with my soul. I ended up finding a 3-day-a-week alternative education setting to work for with homeschooling families, and I was able to bring my daughter. What's interesting about this educational setting is one of the days was spent in the forest and the other 2 were in the classroom. So I was able to see how that same child operated in a classroom versus the forest, and it seemed like the forest was pure magic for these kids. That job ended during the pandemic, and I made the decision to homeschool all 3 of my children, as well as start a Nature Connection program for homeschoolers. I'm currently working part-time as a nature leader, teaching at a pod, and I also do Beyond Quantum Healing hypnotherapy at lifeforcewithlisa.com for people to access their own higher selves and guides for healing and clarity in their own lives. As a result of my life experience being in several learning environments, I feel I have a better understanding of what works for children and doesn't. But I'm hoping to get an even deeper understanding, as the topic of children and learning is very dear to my heart. I feel most of us adults have been taught by the public school system, so there's underlying unconscious beliefs and programming around what schooling should be. Even in the homeschooling community, many of those around me I see are recreating school. So for the topic for today is seeking understanding on designing a heart-centered learning community for this generation of children who are aligned in mind, body, and spirit. So I'll wait for Tara for when she's ready.
Okay.
Who am I speaking with?
My name Helen.
Hi, Helen. What is your dimension?
4th dimension, upper dimension 4th.
Thank you for speaking with me. So I have a few questions regarding educating children on this generation. My first question is it beneficial to have school at all? And if not, what would that look like on a day-to-day?
When we think of the school setting, we think of one person in charge of many children, but perhaps we should think of school as home, the home setting. There should be more than one teacher. Interesting, I feel the vocals, the voice. When I was incarnated on your dimension, 3rd, Earth, I could not speak. I could not see. I had no hearing. But many of you know my story. You learned it in coincidentally school.
Yeah.
But think of my school, my teacher, one-on-one, one teacher, one student. Think of this for children today. How could one person speak the language of 30 or 40 other students? Some of them have no language at all, not yet, not to be able to communicate. Communication is the most fundamental part of being, not just being human, but animals communicate, trees communicate. For me, it felt like I was floating in a void of darkness, unable to communicate how I feel, what I want. Your children these days don't need to be like me, missing senses, but many of them feel they are floating in a void of darkness, unable to communicate how they feel, what they think, and even how to ask questions. So it is very unfair for the students, as it is unfair for the teacher, telling the teacher he or she must understand how to communicate with the children who are unable to communicate with them. So perhaps we need to reevaluate the structure of school, not so many students and one caretaker, but more smaller groups, perhaps with a friend, 2, 3, 4 children, one adult, not as the leader, but more as the guide, where the children will teach the teacher and the teacher will teach the children. Many will say this is not feasible. People will bring up money. They will bring up the structures that are already in place. But think of all the good things that have come when those structures have been broken down. When people have started over, it is time for this world, not just the world in which you live, America, to start over. Truly want to help them.
Thank you. What subjects are important for children to learn? I understand even breaking things into subjects might be limiting. And what subjects are currently missing from school?
When we think of the boxes, we think of history as a box and mathematics as a box, and well, in America, it would be your English class is a box. But think that these things are not separate in your everyday life. They all are incorporated in what we do. So it would be more in flow with what the children need. This is why I suggest 3, 4 children at a time per adult. Maybe not even in the same classroom as the other groups of 3 and 4 children, but more perhaps the teacher coming to the home. Maybe the teacher is the parent. Maybe the teacher is part of the community that you live in, and you are helping your neighbor's children. And as things arise with these children, perhaps the child wants 5 cookies. Well, this is a wonderful time to teach them that we cannot eat all 5, but we can have maybe 1, maybe 2. So if we have 2 cookies, then how many cookies have been taken away? We can start to teach them things come up in their lives. And as they struggle with communication, then we bring in English. We bring in writing, typing. We bring in all these things instead of just, for this hour, we will learn English. For this hour, we will learn mathematics. When in our lives have our lives ever been segmented this way? Or today, right now with you, I am communicating. So right now we are only doing English? No. We're speaking about expansion. We talk about consciousness. We will talk about history, for I am a part of that history. These are not subjects to be divided, but everything to be brought together, to live in flow. And if children learn to live in flow, and the teachers learn to live in flow, then everything isn't so disjointed. We don't have adults who now have trouble separating, I am doing this now from I am doing this now. I am going to work now. I go to home now. Now is the time with my children. Now is my me time. What if we could do all of this together so we don't struggle with time? This is where we say time doesn't exist. It only exists when we create barriers between the things we love to do in our lives. Barriers with our children. I only have this amount of time with them, only this amount of time to learn, only this amount of time to go to work. But what if we could do it together as one in flow? So, in essence, this is no extra subject to teach, but merely to teach and question as their life progresses. If they ask, Mother, why am I not old enough to cook on the stove? This is a wonderful question. Let's talk about limitation. Let's talk about height to stove ratio. Let's talk about communicating. Perhaps I could help you cook on the stove instead of you being ready to do it yourself. Instead of it being a hard no, and let's wait for a time, again, time,
Mm-hmm.
when you are older to do this. No, let's talk about it now. Allow them to ask questions. The more no's they hear, the more they fail to know. N-O-W, right now. I hope this helps.
It does. I think we all struggle with that time rigidity. Do you feel that children benefit from any structure and rhythm in their day? And what is the balance between structure and freedom?
It is for the person who is helping to first understand structure and freedom in their own lives. Think of teachers today. They want structure in their classroom, students not talking out of turn, making sure they raise their hand, making sure they are respectful of one another, making sure they have their bathroom breaks, making sure they have their lunch times. But how free does the teacher feel? The teacher is also bound by waiting for the students to raise their hands, waiting for those bathroom breaks, waiting for the bell to ring for they can eat. So if they can understand the freedom between structure and this openness within themselves, they become an example for the students. They don't need to teach freedom and structure. The freedom and structure is built within the instructor. So we would guide students throughout the day, see what they would like to do, perhaps suggest some things for them to do that would be in alignment with their learning. Let's say I want more of a focus on history today. Perhaps the things that they are watching on television or looking on their internet are more history-based. Perhaps the things you bring up are about your family history, not just their American history or world history, or perhaps something that you got in meditation and the history that you learned of the Andromedans or the Pleiadians. And you're bringing this up in conversation with the 2 or 3 children that you have, and their minds will expand. They will have questions about this. Or perhaps they are not interested at that time, but it is your use of intuition. What is interesting to my student at this time? Maybe they are wanting to build something with their Legos. Okay, I want to talk about history. They want to build something with their Legos. Let's incorporate history into the building of those Legos. It is allowing their freedom, their free will, while also incorporating the structure that you wanted for them that day.
Thank you. Do you feel there's any benefit through, say, they started a commitment to following through on that task if they lose interest?
It is a learning experience for both the teacher or parents, instructor, as well as the student themselves. If you see that the need to finish is waning, they are no longer interested, then this is a wonderful moment for both the student and the teacher. Ask them why. Why have you become disinterested at this time? At first, they might say, I don't know. But you might say, well, sometimes when we don't know, we have to pause for a moment and go inwards. Let's go inwards together. And perhaps you have a brief little, maybe meditation. Maybe they don't have to close their eyes, but just breathing for a moment, asking them, how do you feel right now? They might say frustrated. Okay, well, why do we feel frustrated? Maybe they don't know what the next step is. Okay, so if we don't know the next step, then maybe we should pause for today and we will bring it up tomorrow. Maybe we will ask to receive a message in our dreams tonight about how to proceed forward. Sometimes we feel that things should be rushed, that if somebody is to start a project, then there needs to be a deadline right now. And yes, in the world that we live in work, there are deadlines. But if we can allow ourselves the grace to allow the answers to come to us and see how we feel, then we decide, do I truly want to make that deadline? Or has this brought up something else for me? And I am now on a new project, something that I'm allowing myself to do. Had I not given myself the grace to say, it's okay that I don't finish this other project. This allows more flow. This will help in the end when they become adults by allowing them the freedom as children to not feel pressured to end something that they have started. But of course, they will feel accomplishment in seeing things through to the end, but they will also see accomplishment in beginning something and being inspired for something even greater. The accomplishment is the same, whether it was of the same project or of a different project.
That was helpful. Thank you. How do we best meet the needs of children with autism, ADHD, and what are these children trying to teach us?
That's why I have also come forward today. Remember that I said that communication was so important because I felt unable to communicate, that I was lost in this void of darkness, not because the loss of my senses, but because others and myself had not found a way yet to communicate. There's always a way to communicate. There's a way to communicate with those who might have, as you say, ADHD or ADA, or they might have autism or somewhere else where the norm is not meant for them. But what is the norm? Because we see that there's failed communication all around, failing to communicate with trees, with animals, with our own homes that we live in, non-communication between spouses, communication between our own children. So when we understand to use our intuition to communicate with our child with autism, our child with ADHD, or whatever label they have given that child, and they say it is a disability. It is not a disability. They communicate differently than you do. We all do. So I don't say that you have a disability or that he has a disability. He has a different form of communication. You have a different form of communication than me. And if you were in my time and I was signing to you, you might struggle. Or I might sign in your hand and you may not understand my communication. So I would have to find a different form of communication for you. But I would not say that you are disabled, just like you wouldn't say that I was disabled. So again, it is using the intuition, and it is going to be a trial and error. When I'm trying to communicate this, I'm going to try it in this form with my child with autism. And if that doesn't work, I will try something else. But I'm also going to watch them. How do they communicate with themselves? How do they communicate with their friends? Watch how they communicate with nature. Watch how they communicate with their pets. And in doing that, I can try to communicate in that way as well. So it's more observance than saying I must force a form of communication with them. Being a great instructor is being a great listener and observer. And this is how we can best help them. Well, also using your intuition.
Thank you. Do you have any last messages for us to share?
Yes, I know that I've spoken on many things, but for me, my one major message is communication. Think about the things that you might call failures in your life. And remember, there's nothing wrong in failure. How many times did I have to fail and my instructor have to fail before we could see eye to eye, so to speak? We had to fail many times. Would you say that this is a bad thing? What if I had given up the first time I failed? What if she had given up the first time she failed? We would not have this wonderful history to share with everyone today. So communication, the greatest communication of all, starts inside. If I did not learn to communicate with myself properly, I would not have been open to communicate with my teacher and thus with my parents. Learn self-communication. Observe and listen the animals, the people, nature around you. Understand their language. Show them your language. Come together. In doing so, you will see much more cohesion in your world. You will see less people drifting apart because of a loss of communication. Communication is what binds. This is why people talk about having connection with their soul. If there is no communication with that, we are all lost in a void of darkness.
Thank you so much, Helen and Tara.
Whoa. Oh my gosh, that was Helen Keller.
I didn't expect her, but that's great.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm like crying. She has such a wonderful energy. Wow. It was so interesting. It was like she was feeling around in my body. It was like she's feeling my voice move, and it's like and for a moment it was like she was saying, oh, you have a loss of your eyesight as well. And then she was like, oh wait, your eyes are closed.
Yeah.
A joke. I was like, but yeah, that was wow. What did you think?
I loved it. I could sense that I still have like a bit of rigidity around wanting to create some sort of structure, and she just kept saying like, you need to be intuitive about all of this, and I think that's something I really needed to hear, and I appreciate that. It's funny because I had learned something recently, or saying if someone's learning to ski, part of the learning is falling down many times. I don't personally ski, but I think that was a message as well about the failure, and not being upset about that's part of the process. And it's funny because I meditated this morning and then I fell. There's some snow on the ground. I fell, but I kind of just laughed it off because I just felt it was like a message in terms of that. So thank you.
Yeah, what I thought, because I taught high school English for like 14 years, and I had such rigidity in my classroom into structure. Like we don't talk over others. We raise our hand before we speak. If they need to go to the bathroom, they have to ask permission, all these things. And for me, that I was taught that that's how you create like a harmonious environment. But I know that there were students that were bored out of their minds. There were kids that were felt like the class was going too fast. Some thought the class was going too slow. And it didn't matter how rigid my structure was. Like I was still having trouble like connecting with all these students. And I think that it would have been hard for me to try to live like Helen Keller said, like just be more in flow and more intuitive with the students. because it would have gone against everything that I learned about being a teacher. But I can see her point of view, and I can see how it is unfair to say that like I should understand all 40 of my students and be able to meet them where they need to be met. And also for all 40 students to be able just to communicate the way I communicate. I'm just like one person. So I can totally see that, and I can totally see that an overhaul would have to be done. But it wouldn't have to be large, especially if we started bringing it back to the communities, which means that people would kind of have to change the structure of their lives. So, but maybe I don't know, maybe that's what we need as a collective. Maybe it won't happen overnight, but maybe this is something we can all work towards. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I'm hoping that's where the community goes as well. But it does take a big leap, right? Many of us are working and they need to bring their kids somewhere. So, exactly. Yeah, but let's hope it gets there.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, if the collective sets the intention that eventually we'll get there, and we just have to have faith in that. So, wow. Thank you for suggesting this subject. I am honored with the energy that came through. I'm honored to have you asking the questions. I have to go back and rewatch it because I don't remember all that was said, but I think we got the gist of it, and it felt really good.
Thank you so much, Tara. I really enjoyed your channeling as always. It's given me so much insight. I'm very grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And for everybody who's watching, keep those topics coming. If you would like to be a guest interviewer, like Lisa did a fabulous job, then you can email me, tara@kittensweightsandtarot.com, or if you just want to email a topic, like I said, you could have your image shown or not shown. It's totally up to your comfort level, but I think this is great to have these different perspectives from our community. And I will see you guys next Monday. Definitely check out all the information down below. There's also information about Lisa down below, so definitely check it out. And thank you to all of my YouTube members, subscribers, patrons, supporters. Love you guys. We will catch you next week. Peace. Bye.
Bye.